Hello! Today we're going to review tax, tip, discount, markup, all that stuff. You guys were doing awesome with that in class, but we have to review it because you'll see it again on the final and SOL and all that stuff. And this is really important and stuff you're going to use every day in real life. All right? So what is tax? Tax is either money, it's money that's added to your total that is given to the government. So taxes are used to pay for roads, to pay for schools, they pay for police officers. We talked about a lot of that stuff in class, remember? Okay, so how do I calculate tax? So remember, my first step is I'm going to change my percent into a decimal. So I'm going to change my percent to a decimal. All right, my next step, what I want to do is I want to multiply my decimal to my price, my total price. And then my last step, or my third step, is I take that amount and I add it to my original price. Okay, so let's find this example here. It says Mr. Thurston buys a coat at Macy's for $135. Woo-hoo! That's an expensive coat. All right, so there is a 5% sales tax. How much tax is paid? What is the total price Mr. Thurston paid for his coat? All right, so my first step, I got to change that percent to a decimal. So 5%. How do I change a percent to a decimal? Well, if I think back to the first unit, I know I have to divide by 100 to change a percent to a decimal because all percents are out of 100. So when I do 5% divided by 100, that gives me 0.05. My second step is I take that decimal, 0.05, and I'm going to times it to my price. So 0.05 times 135. And when I do that, I get $6 or 6.75, so $6.75. So that right here is my amount of tax. So that's the answer to this right here, my amount of tax. But they want to know the total price. The total price. How do I find my total price? I take my $6.75 that I just calculated, and then I add it to my original price. So I'm going to add it to $135 because that was the cost of my coat. So when I add those two together, I get $141.75. So when I was at Macy's, even though the coat says it was $135, this is the amount that I actually paid because I have to pay for sales tax. All right, try the practice problem below on your own. All right, my next example is what is tip? Remember, tip is a percent added to your price for a service. So we tip waiters and waitresses. We could tip taxi drivers or Uber drivers. We can tip movers that move things from one house to another. We can tip anybody who does a service for us. If you go to a barber shop, you can tip your barber if you get a nice haircut, right? So that is what tip is. Tip is a percent of whatever your bill is, and it's added to your bill or your price for a service. All right, so how do I calculate tip? Well, the good thing is it's the same steps as finding tax. First, you change your percent to a decimal. So I change my percent to a decimal. After I change my percent to a decimal, my second step is I multiply that decimal to my price. And then third, tip is extra money I have to pay, so I have to add it to my original price. So let's read this problem over here and see if we can figure this out. Mr. Jackson paid painters $1,250 plus a 10% tip. What's the amount of tip? What's the total amount that, this should say he paid, not she, Mr. Jackson's a male. So what is the total amount that Mr. Jackson paid? All right, so my first step, I gotta change that percent to a decimal. So think back, how do I change a percent to a decimal? Well, I know all percents are out of 100, so I can divide by 100. And when I divide 10% by 100, I get 0.1. All right? And my next step is I take that decimal of 0.1 and I'm going to multiply it towards my price, 1,250. Okay? And when I do that, I get 125. And that is my amount of tip. That's how much tip he's going to leave these painters, $125. Pretty good tip, I think. All right, and then my last step is my total amount. So I have to take my $125 that I found as my tip and add it to my original amount of $1,250. And when I add those together, 125 plus 1,250, that gives me $1,375. That's how much he spent in total, including the tip. So that was his total bill, $1,375. All right, that's tip. Try the next problem on your own. All right, my next example is, what is discount? Well, discount is money saved or subtracted from my price. You guys know what discount is. So you guys know what discount is. You go to the store and you'll see like a 25% off, or Bed Bath & Beyond always has these 20% off coupons, right? So that's a percentage that's taken off your price to save money, right? So how do I do this? Same steps pretty much. First step, percent's got to go to a decimal, right? Percent, we change to a decimal. My second step, I'm going to multiply my decimal to my price. So first step, change percent to decimal. Second step, I'm going to multiply, put on my price. But my third step this time is different than tax and tip. My third step, I'm going to subtract, because discount is money that I save. All right, so let's read our example. Madison goes to Target and buys a sweater that costs $25.95. There was a discount of 15%. What is the discount amount? How much did she pay for the sweater? All right, so my first step, I got to change that percent to a decimal. So 15%, how do I change that to a decimal? I divide it by 100, because all percents are out of 100. So that gives me 0.15. All right, my next step, I'm going to multiply. So I'm going to take my 0.15 I just found, and I'm going to multiply it times my price. And my price was $25.95. All right? And when I multiply those two, 0.15 times 0.15 times 25.95, that gives me 3.89. 3.89. So that is my discount amount. That's how much Madison is going to save on her sweater, $3.89. All right, so my sale price is how much I'm actually going to pay. So what I'm going to do is I have to take my original amount of $25.95, and I got to subtract it from my discount amount. So subtract $3.89. And what do we get when we do that? We do 25.95 minus 3.89, and that gives me 22.06. So for this sweater, Madison's going to pay $22.06. Try the practice problem below. See if you can do it on your own. Get it checked by a teacher when you're done. All right, last one, markup. Markup, we talked about this in class. This is a percent added to cost. Remember we looked at that list of the most marked up things, and one was like movie popcorn, and it cost movie theaters like 20 cents to make a large popcorn, but they charge you like $7, right? So it's a percent added to the cost so companies can make money. They're not going to charge you the same amount it costs them to make something, because then they won't make any money. So how do I do markup? Well, I know my first step is the same as all the others. Percent, we got to change it to a decimal. All right. My second step, I know that I have to multiply. And then my third step, it's mark up. So if I'm marking something up, I'm going to add. Okay? So let's read our example. The wholesale price of Concord 11s was $115. The retail store put a 15% markup on it. So first step, 15%. I got to change that to a decimal. So 15%, how do I change that to a decimal? I divide it by 100, because all percents are out of 100. And when I do that, I get 0.15. All right, my next step, I know I have to multiply. So I'm going to take that price, 0.15, or take the decimal, and times it by my price. And my price was 115. And when I do that, 0.15 times 115, that gives me 17.25. So 17.25. This is my markup amount. That's how much it's going up by. So how do I find my total amount? I got to take my original price of 115 and add my markup amount of 17.25. And when I do that, I do 115 plus 17.25, I get $132.25. So that is my final cost. That's how much the store is going to charge me. So Nike sold it to the store for $115. The store raises it 15%. That's how much they charge for it, $132.25. Try the example below. Do it on your own. Get it checked by a teacher when you're done, and then continue on with your classwork. Ask a question if you need help. Raise your hand. We're here to help you. See you later.